So historically, Wales and Scotland have different status within Great Britain. But today, they're governed in a very similar way. Both regions are represented in the British government by a senior minister called a Secretary of State. The Welsh Secretary and the Scottish Secretary lead government departments called the Welsh Office and the Scottish Office. William Hague is the Secretary of State for Wales in the current Conservative government. He explains how the Welsh Office works.
The Welsh Office is a department of the government which in Wales has taken over the functions of what in England would be many different departments. The Department of the Environment, of Health, of Education, of Agriculture. In Wales, all of these things are brought together in the Welsh Office. We do a similar thing with the Scottish Office, and that department is headed by me, the Secretary of State for Wales. It means that I can take an overview of almost all government policies affecting Wales, and I can sit in the cabinet and represent the Welsh situation, the Welsh perspective on things, and also, of course, represent the government in Wales.
So the Secretaries of State for Wales and Scotland can sit in the cabinet, in the group of most senior ministers who run the government. And they can represent the Welsh or Scottish perspective. They can represent the way things are viewed by the people of Wales or Scotland. England doesn't have a minister who specifically represents English interests. And the Welsh and Scottish offices have a large amount of administrative control over many different areas of government. So that's how Wales and Scotland are currently governed within Great Britain. But in recent years, there have been calls for a different constitutional relationship. Some people in Wales and Scotland have been asking for more regional control. They've been asking for devolution, the transfer of powers from the centre of government in London to regional assemblies in Wales and Scotland. In 1979, there was a vote in the two regions to see if people wanted devolution. In Scotland, a small majority of the people who actually voted chose devolution. But under the terms of the vote, the majority was too small. Wales voted against devolution. But why were there calls for greater independence from the 1970s onwards, when Scotland and Wales had been governed by the British Parliament in London for such a long time? Professor O'Leary says that it was the conjunction, the coming together of two different things. Firstly, power in Britain had become very centralised in London. And secondly, Britain had joined the European Union.
What happened in the 1970s, I think, was the conjunction of two separate things. First of all, there was a sense that power had become dramatically centralised throughout the whole of the United Kingdom, and it was being focused strongly in London. Secondly, and almost as important, in the 1970s, Britain became part of the European Union. And there's no question that both the Scottish and the Welsh nationalists decided to take a much more positive view about Europe than the English. And one reason they did so was they saw Europe as an opportunity to break away from English domination. By contrast, some of the English, at any rate, were fearful that Europe would weaken their long-established kingdom.
So Scottish and Welsh nationalists saw the European Union as an opportunity to break away from the dominant power in Britain, England. And they are still calling for devolution today. Malcolm Chisholm is a Member of Parliament for an area in Scotland, and he's the opposition Labour Party's spokesman on the Constitution. He says that now there's a third reason why people in Scotland want devolution.
I think people in Scotland feel it particularly strongly because for 18 years we've had a Conservative government in London, and Scotland has throughout that time continued to vote Labour. Well, certainly it's had a majority of Labour MPs, and so we feel we've had a lot of policies imposed on Scotland that the people of Scotland didn't really want. So I think also that has increased the demand for more say over our own affairs. Although there isn't any demand for complete separation, we don't want that at all.
Both Scotland and Wales have a long tradition of voting for the Labour Party. Wales, for instance, has never had a majority of Conservative members of Parliament. But the Conservative Party has been the ruling party in the British Parliament since 1979. So many people in Scotland and Wales think that they have had policies imposed on them that they did not vote for. The opposition Labour Party proposes a policy of devolution for Scotland and Wales. In fact, all the main British political parties except the Conservative Party have a policy of some kind of devolution. But Malcolm Chisholm says that there's no call for complete separation. Other politicians would disagree. Both Wales and Scotland have nationalist parties whose ultimate aim is independence. Although they're small parties, they do have a significant effect on the politics of their region. Scotland has the SNP, the Scottish National Party, and Wales has Plaid Cymru, which is a Welsh name and means Wales Party. The SNP wants total independence for Scotland, and Plaid Cymru wants a Welsh Parliament, leading eventually to independence for Wales. David Wigley is the president of Plaid Cymru. He says that because there are so few Conservative members of Parliament in Wales, even the Secretary of State for Wales is not elected by a Welsh constituency, a Welsh voting area.
The last 4 Secretaries of State for Wales have not even been from Welsh constituencies. They've been English MPs who have been given the job of keeping an eye on Wales, looking after Wales. That is a total inversion of what should be the theoretical role of a Secretary of State. The idea was to have somebody from Wales in the cabinet who could speak up from first-hand experience about the hopes and fears of Wales, the aspirations and the trepidations. Rather than that, we have someone from the cabinet who travels around Wales as a salesman on behalf of the government.
So David Wigley believes that the Secretary of State for Wales cannot speak up on behalf of Wales, cannot represent Welsh interests if they are elected by a part of England. In general, all the parties that want some kind of devolution in Britain believe that devolution would improve democracy. But the Conservative Party thinks that devolution would lead to the end of the Union. Despite the discussions about devolution to the regions, Scotland, Wales, and England are still united as Great Britain. And Great Britain is still within the United Kingdom. Next week, we'll look at the 4th element that makes up the United Kingdom, Northern Ireland.
Britain Today was written and presented by Catherine Rees.